Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. Man, I am very excited for our show tonight. We are joined by Adam Butler, psychedelic philosopher, author. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited. Like I said, I've been listening to your catalog of guests and funky and freaky
We
conversations.
get
I'm
freaky.
excited. Yeah, let's fucking do it.
What part of US are you in, man?
Rhode Island.
Oh,
So kind of
nice.
between Boston and New York.
Oh, where I want to be. That's
Yeah,
where I want to
away
be,
from the
man.
assholes, but it's still nice along the water.
Yeah, that's like my dream place. That is where one day I'd like to end up. Hopefully
Well,
not.
we mentioned before we started recording about how I traveled, across the country, and there's some beautiful, amazing places throughout the states. But to come home to a beautiful coastal Rhode Island, excuse me, you really do appreciate, what you have.
Yeah, man.
So yeah,
Yeah.
hey, if you're ever in town, hit
I'm
me up.
coming. I'm coming, brother. 100%, man. I
Yeah.
was just saying as well, just before we started recording, so there was a power cut in my house, and I just told you that, and you was like, "Well, that normally happens before you do a
Everyone.
podcast." That's weird.
Yeah, I think you're like my 29th podcast in the last whatever year and a half, and truly every time there's something funky that happens. I
That's
don't know,
wild,
it's
man.
whatever.
Because some people know that when I do a show, it's normally I finish work at 1:30 in the morning UK time. I get in, and like now we start doing the podcast. And I've never had that before. I've never got in and I've turned the switch, turned one of the lights on. It's not coming on. Like, that's strange. Tried another room, lights not coming. I'm like, oh man, I've got a power cut. I was about to message you and say, you're not going to believe this. I've got a power cut. And then I got to the fuse box, turned it back on. And luckily, touch wood at the moment, we're all right.
Well, perfect way to get into it. We were just talking about how with ghost hunters or Bigfoot hunters or cryptid, people seeking them in general, how it's not even hit or miss. Most times it's a miss where, that DMT space and those DMT entities and that DMT energy is always there constantly. It's accessible to everybody. And, not to say that that's what happened, but
Hmm.
just a
It's
perfect
weird
segue
though.
to be like, and it transcends time and space and all that shit too. So
Yeah. So do you think you say this happens quite often? Do you think there's the entities are trying to stop these conversations from happening?
no, no,
No?
we're on good terms.
Oh, that's good then. That's
I
good
actually
then.
got a weird kind of, I don't necessarily say message, and this is where, like, this is the perfect place to talk about these things because it's like you can kind of air these conversations where um you and your listeners kind of like have similar experiences. Like, yeah, no, I get it. No, I just had in one of my DMT sessions recently, I kind of was communicated that somehow, some way I'll be part of like translating that realm to humans. Whether so, yeah, no, I think
Interesting.
I'm in.
Yeah, you're in the good
Well,
side.
and actually, and I'm sure we'll get into some of my DMT experiences, but there was a time, like a year after writing my book, and I, done it quite a bit, and I kind of got cocky and arrogant, and I was going in there kind of like, oh, I'm some DMT psych, and I want to know back of the house shit. I want to know how the pyramids were built. I want to, like going in there, like demanding this information, and it was very weird because you don't really build a tolerance to DMT. You don't like it every time. Typically, it's very, very profound. But there was like a 3 or 4 kind of session experience where I didn't feel anything, and I've pretty much kind of like I felt like I got kicked off the team, or like, I went in there like I didn't have the respect and reverence that I needed to go into that space, and for it was like, how is this possible? Because I was smoking a lot, like I was taking 4, 5, 6 big rips, which normally would blast you off, and really nothing, and until I kind of said my apologies truly and said, my bad, that won't happen again, and if let back in, I'll appreciate it. And I remember like kind of the next time I smoked, I had that vibratory hum and that buzz, and it was just like, nice, fucking, I'm back. So
Wow,
yeah.
that's interesting, man.
uh, and that's
See,
not, I've heard that from some other people too, where it's like because it's a very, I think it's a very real space, and that's kind of where this like extended state DMT research is kind of headed, where they're trying to do that intravenous drip and keep people there for a really, half hour, hour, 2 hours, because the similarities that people are coming out of these experiences are very, um, they're unique and subjective, but there's kind of like an ambiance and an infrastructure that's clear, and people are kind of coming out saying the same thing. So,
mhm.
uh,
That's what I find super interesting with this stuff. is that, as you say, the people are having similar experiences. They're coming across the same entities, and I find that fascinating, man.
Well, and this is where, after studying this now for a year and a half, and really kind of getting into all types of altered or elevated states of consciousness, so what happens when people have epilepsy seizures or epileptic seizures, excuse me, lucid dreaming, near-death experiences, all these states, even, I mentioned how I just got back from the Monroe Institute, where
Hmm.
they really, they teach you how to elevate your consciousness and alter the states of vibration in your body to receive different information. So, now, I think also the ghosts, the aliens, the Bigfoots, again, I think it's subjective of how people are interpreting these energies. But I think they're there and they're always there. It's just a matter of being able to kind of tune your antenna or vibrate at a frequency that resonates with whatever type of energy that is. And you can get there through prayer, through meditation, through certainly through drugs. But there's definitely other ways of getting there. But I think the cool thing about DMT as well is, that instant blast, but the fact that it is also endogenous, the fact that it is produced naturally in your own body. So it's a very unique feeling that's different from shrooms, or different from LSD, or different from, I mentioned how I'm coming on 4 years being sober. It's
Hmm.
different from getting drunk and losing your senses and getting dulled, or even with shrooms, how you feel like you're poisoned and everything's kind of trippy and all melting and shit. Um, DMT is profound and weird, and as crazy as your sights and senses and everything goes, it is very natural, and it does feel kind of, like the veil's being lifted. Not like your senses are being dulled or drugged, but that you're actually being exposed to more energy and information. And I think ultimately that's really the key behind all of this. So, these people that are having these interactions for whatever reason, whether it be because of trauma or because of intention, because they're setting the seance, so that, I think it's like I said, just kind of resonating at that same energy.
Hmm.
And it's an old and obviously very basic example, but I just saw it the other day in another video, and it's like, yeah, that's it. You have like a tuning fork, held up to another tuning fork, and somebody bangs it, and you see the tuning fork vibrating like that, and it's like very clear example of how there is energy way beyond what our five senses are typically picking up, and it can move physical matter, it can manifest itself in sound, in light, and all that shit, and
Hmm.
it's there. As you
Interesting,
well
man.
know, as you have,
Yeah,
now, shitloads of episodes of people that are coming on being like, yeah, I've seen the whole spectrum of shit. And,
yeah, yeah.
I've just seen it through a lens that, um, it's just very easy to put on the lens. It's like that old movie They Live, where those people are able to put on the
Hmm.
glasses and just see
Yeah.
all, like, it's kind of like that, where as soon as you hit
Interesting.
that DMT, you're just in a whole different world.
Yeah.
But it's that common phrase of more real than real,
Hmm.
definitely applies, because you have so many more sensory inputs. That there's so much more coming in, not less, and it's so clear and so precise and so um, just as it's not dulled. Like even in a dream, even in a lucid dream, that it there's some, you can tell you're in a dream state. You can tell that everything is not as clear and crisp. Where in this state it's super clear and super
Yeah.
crisp.
Yeah. So interesting, man. I'd like to go to the start of your journey into all this sort of stuff. If you don't mind, if we can go to the start, how you got into experimenting with DMT and where it all began for you.
Yeah, so my life before DMT and after DMT.
Yeah.
So it's been a fucked up journey, and this is all relatively new to me. So I'm 44 years old. All of this shit happened basically when I was 41, um, when I had my proverbial midlife crisis. And that's why I think it's important talking to. It seems to be kind of middle-aged men, or men, 35 to 50 or so, where and not even just men, women as well. Anybody that's been to this point in their life, they've had a bunch of plaque and a bunch of bullshit, kind of build up on them. Um, but I don't want to act like my story is necessarily special in that regard, because like I said, we're all dealing with our own shit. But really, over like a year and a half period, I just had a whole shitload of horrible events happen, including, honestly, and I'm happy talking about it, because I've really been able to put it all in perspective. Um, I got a knock on the door from a constable giving me a restraining order, fucking kicking me out of my house. So I was in an 8-year relationship. I was in this beautiful 3-story Victorian by the water dream house. dream life, making a shit ton of money, two dogs, two cats, all that shit. And in a second, the guy was like, "Yeah, you need to leave. Like you." So obviously my relationship's over. I can't stay at my fucking house. And this was right before COVID started. So all non-essential court stopped. So this whole thing was like up in the air where I mean, basically she was living in the house for, a long, long time where I had to keep paying all the bills and all this shit. So that was now and just kind of um she did everything that she needed to do to get me out of her life. I was a drunk, belligerent, mean, nasty, dark fucking asshole. I've never put my hands on anybody. I've never been in a fight in my life. So it's not like, I was never physical, but I was just verbally abusive and just spatially abusive. I was a dick. Um, so, really that was kind of the first thing that was just like, all right, something's got to change. But then I found, I got into a new relationship, a better job that fell apart. The guy at the new job excuse me, he screwed me over like $900, and I threatened to kill him. And again, this is all me at obviously a very touchy point in my life. And he looked at me back and he was like, "All right, fuck you, I'll kill you." And it got like really serious really quick, where we got, it became, and again, it was. I don't even say it was going to get physical. It just would have been we were going to try to murder each other. So it wasn't going to be like swing and try to break somebody's nose type thing. Like it was that fucking nasty.
Hmm.
Um, but at that point, I had lived like 2 or 3 blocks from this guy, and he was co-owner of the company that I worked for. So I knew everything was kind of like to shit. But I had money in the bank, and at that point, I was like, you know what, screw it. So that was on a Sunday, and Monday morning, I woke up and I was like, fuck it, I'm driving to California to hug a redwood tree. So I literally drove 26 hours across the Mississippi. That was my first stop in Kansas City, and from there, I spent like a year and a half on the road, really just traveling across the country. I spent like 3 weeks in California, sleeping on the beach. I went to all these national parks. Um, Really just kind of having that spiritual journey that I'm blessed to have been able to have. But along the whole way, uh, I was doing psychedelics, shrooms and DMT. So and it wasn't like so all of these bullshit things happened over like a year and a half, but it was really to my own making, and that's when I realized too I needed to stop drinking. So that was kind of a part of it too. But I started with shrooms, and so I hadn't done any hard drugs or anything like that since my 20s. But I knew that I was hearing a lot about therapeutic value, and I was hearing about how it was helping with stress and anxiety. And at that point, I was really in a dark place. Like I mentioned before we started recording, I was suicidal. I was gonna go. I was contemplating, do I want to live on this planet? And I felt as though it was my decision to make, and it wasn't a rash decision. Like, this is something I'm just gonna decide today. I spent weeks and weeks and weeks trying to figure this shit out. Um, and that's where psychedelics came in and really just changed the perspective. But like I said, I started with the shrooms. I started pushing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gram doses. I was getting pretty deep in it, and I was getting a lot of insight. It was holding up a mirror up to myself where I was seeing all of the dark, shitty aspects of myself. Where I could lie to my friends, I could lie to my girlfriend, I could lie to my therapist, but you can't lie to yourself when you're on 5 grams of shrooms. So it was, no, you idiot, look at you. You're a narcissistic, mean, nasty. You were drunk, like and again, I don't beat up myself anymore now because I'm 100% 180% opposite all of these. But it was really just seeing that for the first time, where I was like, all right, I've at least now I can put things in perspective. But I didn't have the life-changing like epiphany that I knew I needed, and that's kind of where DMT came in. And I spent several months. So a buddy of mine let me know that I had access to it, and he knew kind of where I was at, and that he, kind of this may be kind of last ditch effort type shit. So I spent several months doing as much research as I could. So I read all the books that were out there. Um, Rick Strassman's The Spirit Molecule is probably like the one to start with. That was his study in the 90s where he kind of, not only describes what the volunteers went through, but really goes over what the molecule is. Um, Listened to all the podcasts and everything, and I knew that I was kind of ready. And that first day was just really the day that I say kind of saved my life, because that's when I had that proverbial breakthrough where it really was like, fuck, okay, like not that it was a magic pill where everything's fixed. If anything, just the opposite. It was like now I have this glaring spotlight shining right on my pile of fucking shit. But now I could finally see what that pile of shit was, instead of sweeping it under the rug or lying about it, or pushing it off into the future, or blaming it on the past. And it was so liberating and so freeing. And like I said, we're all gonna have our own shit that we need to sort out. But I think the in my just experience talking to other people, it's that the commonality is just people learn that to be truly present here in the now, to not be so caught up in the past or the future. Basic things like look within for your own solutions to your problems, not external. Learn how to know yourself, which can learn to love yourself. Like all these kind of lessons came out of it, but that's what really switched my way of thinking, allowed me to truly love myself, shed all that proverbial plaque, and that it's been like 2.5 years since that happened, and this is also when we slept before recording, saying now I'm truly the happiest, most blissful, content that I've ever been. I haven't had a bad day since in 2.5 years. Like my life is fucking
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Now I'm broke. I'm making $20 an hour when I used to make $1,000 a day. I used to have multiple houses. Now I'm fucking broke, basically homeless still. Like, I've got a big pile of shit I'm still working out of. But my inner joy and contentment and knowledge of where I'm at and where I'm supposed to be is I know it's dead on, and I just physiologically the difference from being in a state of stress, anxiety, depression, as opposed to love, gratitude, joy. It's a whole
Hmm.
different ball game. So now since then, so that's kind of like the dark side. Like, yeah, how'd you get into it? And all this beautiful stuff came out of it. Awesome relationships. The book came out of it. All these podcasts and everything. But now it's just kind of been all right, so now what the fuck do you do with this information that there's all this crazy information. You know there's DMT entities, there's aliens, there's ghosts, you had interactions with your future self, all of the craziest shit that you can possibly imagine I've experienced. And then now like going to the Monroe Institute and pushing that level of consciousness even further. It's really just trying to condense all of this really complex information that we're all trying to scratch the surface at and just trying to see how I can get at it. But um, subsequently now I've done DMT hundreds of times, and I'm not saying that like in a bragging way. It's just my body and my mind can handle it, and I explore that realm quite often, and it's fucking out there.
Man,
So here we are. Yeah.
wow. Well, that's awesome that you're in a good place, and I tell you, there's that is more important than. And I know a lot of really quite, I would say, rich people that are really not happy,
Oh yeah.
and it does. I know money's important. It's important for everyone, obviously, but it's not everything. And like to be content and to be happy and to be comfortable in yourself, that's the most important thing, man. Like that's more important than anything.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what, and then in my book I talk about that too, about how I really was, and I say it as such, that I was kind of like the rich kid with the silver spoon raised, in my mouth, where I had awesome parents, awesome great grandparents. I was gifted like 100 grand by my grandfather to start businesses when I was a teenager. I went to college for 8 years. I traveled the world. I had everything. So, some people will be like, well, if I just have this, I'll be happy. If I just have the hot women, I'll be happy. If I just have the sports car, I'll be happy. If I just travel the world, I'll be happy. And it's like I had all of that, and on paper, it looked perfect. But I was angry, and that's where you know when you are like when if you can't look at yourself in the mirror brushing your teeth and you know that you're fucking like it's hard to look at yourself now as opposed to, and this may sound corny, but this is truly how much I enjoy life and myself now. Like I look in the mirror before I came on here and it's just like, I'm proud of you. Like I love you, man. Like this is exactly what you need to be doing. Um, I was excited to get on with you to give you compliments about how you interact and engage with your guests. And it's just like really excited to be here.
Good
Like every,
energy.
yeah, like every sip of coffee now, every bite of ice cream, every time I make love, every good bong rip, like everything now is just I appreciate every last second of it. And
That's awesome,
not to
man.
keep going on tirades, but like a lot of the topics that you guys are talking, well, you guys, a lot of this kind of esoteric stuff is ascending to this five-dimensional space, or getting into this astral body or this energetic field where you're out of this meat suit, so to speak. And I think that that's not what we should be doing. It's really enjoying um, our physical space and enjoying the fact that we are limited by time and space, and that a lot of these other ghosts and aliens and even DMT entities, they can't come down to our level. They can't slow themselves down to our vibrations where they can actually be here in the solid form. Uh, and this is where all this beautiful things happen. We can get into their levels. We can tap into their realms and see that. But we're the ones that can kiss puppies and hug babies and do all the cool shit that humans are able to do, and it's just not to lose sight of that, so it's
Mhm.
not try to whatever be so out there that you're not physically grounded. That's an important lesson through all this too, is to really be comfortable in your skin,
Yeah.
metaphorically and physically.
Yeah. So that the first hit of DMT that you took, was it almost a transition there and then to this new mindset?
So the first hit was very unique, and I'm glad you asked specifically about the first hit because mentioning that it is endogenous and again naturally not only in our body, but my understanding is in all mammals, it's in thousands of plants, so it's really throughout the entire animal and plant kingdom. Um, that first hit felt so natural and felt like something that I had experienced, tasted, and felt before. Now, I've never done anything even remotely close to that. And it instantly reminded me of like my childhood neighbor's like basement hallway. Now, and I don't know if it's because of he had like an acacia tree or like some tree that may have smelled like DMT or like somehow some way, but it was just very, or maybe that was a moment where I had a pulse of natural DMT back in the day and I remembered it, but I just remember feeling um very comforted. And again, I use like the analogy with shrooms as a difference because when you're doing shrooms you can feel them coming on. So you can feel that like the poisoning is starting to go through your body and getting to your blood. And ideally you're prepared for it and you're setting the intention and so you're welcoming that feeling. But it is a very like, oh shit, this is coming on now. Where DMT, like I said, well first it hits you, it does hit you instantly, and it really is more like I said, like the veil's being removed, where you're now actually being exposed to really what's going on, like really what is behind the curtain. And instead of having just five senses, you have 25 senses. And that's kind of where I'm at now, where it's like, how do you describe what what this information is? Because you're getting information and you're getting these downloads or uploads or DNA upgrades or people always try to describe it because it's not just somebody talking English to you, or it's not somebody showing you pictures, or just spinning mandalas. And you have all of those things, but those really profound insights are kind of the ones that just hit you. And that so and that's what happened that first day as well. But I do so that first hit, and I do mention too. This is definitely I wouldn't mention the best way to necessarily get into DMT, but I do go over how that first day I took about 50 hits. So now, like most people, that would be like more than they would ever take in a fucking lifetime, and probably more than anybody should ever take in a lifetime. But I basically did like 7, 8 sessions spaced over like an hour and a half time, and each hit was like 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. But that first session was like 3 hits. So that first hit, those sensations, everything's like spinning and moving, and you feeling clearly you're in a different space. Um, but no profound insights, no entities, no talking, gods or anything like that. It was really just kind of like you're sitting back and watching the show. So then and the beautiful thing about DMT is that it only lasts 6, 7, 8 minutes. When you drink ayahuasca, that can be hours, but when you're smoking it, um, that state only lasts a very very short amount of time. And then when you come back, there's no hangover, there's no like you come back to full clarity, full lucidity, so you're able to integrate it, kind of like process it, like holy shit, what happened? So
Mhm.
that first session, all right, yeah, that felt cool, but that wasn't gonna save me. That I didn't get any answers. So I pushed it a little bit further. Second and third time, pushing it 4 or 5 hits, push it a little bit further again, and I was getting further into space, but I really didn't have, like I said, I didn't have that breakthrough. I was really just seeing this really cool shit happening. Um, and then that last session, and all those sessions, I did have intention, and I was going through with prayer and really asking for help because I needed it. Um, but that last session was different, and I probably took like 7 hits and really hit it hard. All the vibratory hum stopped, all the weird sights and sounds stopped, all of like the extra sensory stuff stopped, and I just kind of became like suspended in space. It wasn't like a free falling thing. It wasn't like I was being drawn into any light or space or anything like that. It was just like I was in this void, and um, in essence, I got all of my internal questions kind of answered and put into perspective. And like I said, I think that's going to be different for everybody. And that's a beautiful thing about psychedelics and specifically DMT is that it finds that specific crack in your psyche that only you know is there. And you may, like, and it may even be some hidden stuff that you've been suppressing for your entire life, and maybe for good reasons, but um, it will find exactly where the biggest leak, so to speak, is. And um, yeah, that last session. But like I said, it wasn't talking, it was really just this conveyance of information where I knew, oh fuck, like I went to a different space, I interacted with a different entity, different consciousness, different whatever, and I got the profound insight that I needed to truly change my life. Like I came out, and people are probably sick of hearing me say this kind of story over, but like I truly came out of that and went into a crumpled mess on my friend's floor, and had huge tears of gratitude because I was just like, ah, I don't need to waste any more energy on all this shit. Like everything buzzing around, all of the shit compartments in my brain, full of shit, physically wasting energy, and I knew I could just relax, take a breath, and now, to keep with that analogy, grab a shovel and take the first pile of shit and start shoveling, as opposed to just almost every day keep adding to it.
Hmm.
And it was just so empowering, and so really just I took my life back like that day, that second,
Yeah.
and since then it's just been this long exploratory phase of all that other stuff. But that first day was really that profound kind of like, wow. And then that's kind of really why I just re wanted to write the book, because it was I was in such a dark, nasty, nasty place, and truly due to my own making. Um, but I was able to come out of it, and then sharing my stories and hearing stories of other people that had done the similar thing. I really felt as though it was important to kind of get this out there, and not to
Hmm.
say do DMT or do psychedelics. And maybe we probably should have started with this. DMT is not for everybody. Psychedelics certainly aren't for everybody, but for the right person at the right time, it can be exactly what they need. And I just wanted to add one other kind of weird, twisted voice to that narrative. And I've been having a blast doing it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. 'Cause I've got to say, because I've never done any psychedelics myself. I'm not against them. From what I hear, like like yourself, most people's experience of this stuff is very positive. Like, I don't think I've heard a negative. I'm sure there are, but I've never heard many negative stories with psychedelics. They seem to be very positive, life-changing, that everyone should be offered, really, who needs that help.
Because and there's a bunch of analogies people use, but whether it is, truly making a new compartment in your brain, or, people use the analogy of like that old like Etch-a-Sketch like magnetic drawer thing back in the day, where if you shook it, you have a nice clean new palette, or, a ski mountain that you have a bunch of ski trails going down the same one, and over time, there's a rut, then you get a nice snowstorm and you get, new paths. And I think the brain really does work like that, where you get programmed to have a train of thought, or you get triggered by something, and it just goes down the same path all the time, and it leads to grabbing that six pack, punching that wall, doing whatever the self-destructive path is. Uh, and this psychedelics allow you to kind of just have a new framework. And there are people that have buried their children, people that have had stillborn children, people that have had traumatic things, where it's like, how could you ever possibly put that into perspective? And not only do they put it in the right part in their brain where they're not, consumed by it every day, but they actually turn that trauma and pain into something beautiful. They turn it into these programs to help other people. All these, it's like there's a way of turning all of that pain into to love, all that darkness into light. And again, I never thought my story would be crazy, blow up, do all this psychedelics, and then full circle come around to talking about love, connection, and light and all that shit. But it is. And then the more and more I'm studying ancient wisdom and different philosophies and just different religions and everything, they all kind of are coming to this same realization of all the stuff that not that I'm just figuring out, but what I've been studying and seeking for a while now,
Mhm.
which
Yeah,
is
man. Do you think our ancient ancestors were all on DMT and natural drugs like this back in the day?
oh, absolutely. So I think not only so whether it just be through like deep meditation, holotropic breathing, tantric sex, like I said, my meditation at the Monroe Institute, where you're in darkness and listening to these beats, there's a bunch of ways where you can get your body naturally to produce DMT. So I definitely think these guys back in the day that were in dark caves and staring at fires and really having nothing to do were
Hmm.
certainly putting out their own natural DMT. I think the like the stoned ape theory where they were eating shrooms and that was part of their consciousness and brain expansion. I think that certainly was part of it. I think just natural foraging would allow for that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think it's been and then come a little bit newer where you're talking like a couple thousand years ago where these shamans in South America supposedly have had ayahuasca all this time and that's been something they've been doing. All these like ancient mysteries from Europe and Greece and shit like that where they're going into caves and drinking soma and these other type of stuff where no, I definitely think and so yes, definitely psychedelics, definitely other drugs, but I think big picture more just changing and elevating your consciousness to a different vibration or level of energy to resonate with different levels of information. I mean, it really kind of is, it all comes down to that. Like I
Hmm.
said, whether you're in a scared state and you're seeing a ghost, whether you're in a traumatic state of loss and you're seeing a loved one, whether you're whatever in the woods looking for aliens and you're very well may find one because you're kind of at that like if you're looking for lights, you're gonna see lights. If you're
Hmm.
and it's I think it's I think the human body is just capable of receiving a lot of weird information beyond the normal. And that's why you have this podcast. Like literally everybody that comes on has a story of how they've received some sort of weird something.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's very rare to meet someone that's not experienced something strange that they can't explain.
Yeah, and and I typically talk about my DMT stuff, but I've had some really weird, ghost experiences. I've had
Oh
near-death
man.
experiences where time slowed down, so it's and then you share these and people are like, "Oh yeah, I've had that." And it's like, "No,
Yeah,
that's a big one." People kind of just brush it off like a little story and it's like, "No, do you realize what just happened?" Like,
yeah,
you know, like
yeah.
even Andy, he was telling the story about how I guess it wasn't that long ago where he was sitting on the couch and he just had this weird like buzz in his brain where he kind of got like taken over by this just weird feeling of like euphoria. And then after that, he just was like he felt different. He knew information that he shouldn't know. Like he pretty much felt like he got some like
A
upgrade to how his
download.
brain worked.
Yeah.
Or yeah, and it's like that, and he's telling the story and it's like that. And then he went on to give examples right after about how it's affected him and how now he constantly sees new synchronicities and all this weird shit's happening. And um it's similar to once again somebody having a coma and then coming out and they can have different shit or somebody having a really bad accident or um like I said in my case saturating it with DMT you're able to interact with all this stuff that's out there.
Hmm.
But then but what do you do with it? In my opinion, if you're interacting with ghosts and you can see your loved ones, to me that should give you some comfort about end of life and dying. Like I have no fear of death. I'm very comfortable with moving on. If you're not worried about time, what does that mean? That mean it's just it opens up a lot of these things where you don't become stressed like most humans are.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. When you know that there's more after this,
yeah,
then that
and
changes everything.
it does. It because you're not again because you can live for the now. You're not so caught up in the future,
Hmm.
and that doesn't mean don't make goals or don't have a whatever insurance policy and take care of your kids and shit. But like,
Yeah.
just this is it, man. Like it, and because this is where you can put out the vibrations and the energy and the intentions to create the future. And if you're
Hmm.
caught up in the future looking for want and desire, need, it's not. It's just you're gonna keep resonating back with that. You really gotta, kind of feel like you're there.
Yeah, that.
But that
How?
that oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, you go. Sorry, man.
Well, just I know there are a couple of things that you were like, yeah, that would be a good one to talk about.
There's a lot we
About
can talk about.
about like no fear of death or lack of fear of death. And about how I did feel as though I did interact with my future self, and that's I get like that happens to you and it's fucking mind blowing. But then you
Hmm.
start hearing like stories of that happened to other people, and I'm really not telling any of these things to convince anybody. At this point, like I've lost. whatever. I'm not looking to fucking make money. I'm not looking for a title. I'll never seek the type of job and professional life that I've had before. So I'm really this is all for my own exploration and for my own knowledge, so to speak. Uh, but I there's a lot of fucking people that have had these types of interactions, and it's like, well, what does that mean? And in my particular case, so and there's been a really big progression of being comfortable when you go into this DMT space or DMT realm where, the first couple of times it really was just, oh wow, you're like sitting in a 3D theater and you're enjoying this and you're just kind of watching the show and you're not really an active part of it. But then you do start becoming active and you do start having interactions with these entities and then you do start having like information exchanged. Um, it did get to a point where I felt as though they were kind of like examining me and like looking at me and not in a, like an intrusive way, but like in a curiosity way. But it was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like I'm getting whatever. I'm getting really experimented on, not experimented on, but analyzed.
Hmm.
But it clearly was these other entities. But then there was this time when it was clearly not them, and it really was what I felt as me myself, and I had this very calming like, don't worry, Adam, I'm here, and it wasn't me with a longer beard or older in this like body. It was my consciousness or energy or whatever, just kind of coming back and being like, no, I'm here to tell you you're good, you're on path, like, yeah, but kind of seeing how your body's holding up, seeing where you're, kind of like how your systems are operating, uh, and then came back out of it, and it's like, again,
Wow.
how the fuck do you put that into perspective? Like,
Was
of,
that was
yeah.
that like was that just like a knowing that that you was talking to another version of yourself? Was that just a knowing?
So, people ask a lot of times, like, have you seen like the machine elves or the jesters? Like that was what Joe Rogan called them. Machine
Hmm.
elves was Terrence McKenna. I think, and I think it's really just what language and kind of what how you would describe it. For me, I think it's really more the feel and kind of like vibe and energy that they're putting off. So a lot of times, and I think that gestury feeling is really how I describe it as like this carnival like atmosphere where it really is this freak show of all this weird shit happening. There's so much colors and movement and crazy faces and different shit happening where um all of those things could describe it. Machine elves, jesters, aliens, all of that. But some of them are really just playful, like haha, like let me show you around, like a little kid showing you his toys and really excited for you to be there. I've blasted back and I've had them say like he's back, like Adam's back, like excited
Wow.
that I was back in that space. That particular time I was actually on shrooms. So I was tripping balls on shrooms and I smoked DMT while I was on shrooms. So that's a that's like taking it
Whoa.
to another
Yeah.
level. But when I got blasted in, they were like, yeah, he's back, and he brought shrooms, like he brought shroom, like so they can almost like they're interacting with your body, like they can not play you like an instrument, but they can use. That's what I feel like they're doing. Is interacting with your body to somehow, and I don't think it's like sucking energy or some nefarious thing. I think it's a just a symbiotic mutual interaction.
Mhm.
But as I was saying, some of them have that gestury happy feeling. Some of them are very stern male, like disciplinary. Some of them are feminine sexual. Some of them are feminine motherly. Some of them are very angelic. Some of them are more on the darker side, like, shadow worky. Um,
Mhm.
but it's, and then I've had some, and that's where I think there's a lot of correlation too with like alien encounters. There have been several that have been very similar to what people describe their alien abductions like, where it's kind of like sleep paralysis, kind of like you can't move, you're transported out of your room. Like I've had that happen where, and I talk about having had like sex on DMT and doing science and art on DMT. So like your senses really do get expanded, and you can certainly feel your body and know that you're there. So if you open your eyes, you're gonna see that you're in your room and what you're doing. Um, but I've had experiences before where you're not like you're I don't know, that it feels like you're taken out of that space and out of your room, where I've opened my eyes and been like, where the fuck am I? And it was just this blue space, like it was just this weird place other than where I was, and that was a freaky thing because I felt like all of these other interactions where you try to describe it like an upload or a software upgrade or a, DNA download or something like that. This particular time felt like a hardware upgrade, very intrusive, and like I felt like this weird heat sensation go up through my feet, like up through my head and then back out through my feet. And like after that happened, like there was this really weird metal, like metallic smell. My feet were hot. My nose was draining this weird liquid for a long time. And yeah, I hope all the people didn't just listen to that episode I did with Andy because it kind of said the same shit, but it was just like I woke up, I had blood dripping out of my ass that next morning when I when I took a shit. Like there
Whoa.
was there was all this weird physical stuff, but
Yeah.
it wasn't painful. It wasn't like a sexual like abduction type thing. I really felt like I felt stronger afterwards. I felt better. I felt like my like more refined, more clear, more crisp. Like all of my senses seemed better. Like it really, I came out of it shook and not really know how to put that into perspective. But it was very similar to like I said, when I had people when they feel as though they've had an alien abduction,
Hmm.
and I'm wondering, is it just a pulse of DMT? Is it, or is it no, maybe, or is it that you're getting the pulse of DMT, which then allows you to actually have access to these aliens? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't just need to be mutually exclusive. It could be a
So
combination of both, but that was a weird one.
do you think it's possible that this is all going on around us all the time, whatever that realm is, and just every now and again we get glimpses into that world, but when you're on DMT, it's just open. Is that what?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's very similar, just the basic concept of like having all these radio waves and TV waves. And if you tune into a certain dial, you're going to be able to tune into that.
Hmm.
Um, there's the concept of like your brain being a reducing valve, and The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley is a kind of like a psychedelic classic where he was a scientist where he was always curious to what these other people were seeing. So he did mescaline one day, and it really opened up. Like he realized that, or his kind of theory or concept was that we're exposed to such a wide range of information that just to survive, we have to reduce so much of it and blank out so much of it just to be able to truly live. So it's it's not necessarily so much that our brain is this dumb organ, but it's not this profound thing. Well, I shouldn't say that it is profound, but it's a limiting organ, not necessarily like a receiving organ or a creative organ. If anything, it's a big screen to screen out all the X-rays, the gamma rays, all the different shit that's going through the air currently right now. Um, so yeah, I think it is always there, just like a radio can always be put on to pick up that frequency.
Hmm.
And that's where deep meditation, that's where prayer, that's where going into, darkness retreats, that's where ice baths, yoga, certainly DMT, there are multiple ways that I think you can get your body to get into this just calm, coherent state,
Hmm.
that then you can then see what's there and pick up different stuff. And once you start doing it, you like I have no question when this shit's going down. I mean, just from the goosebumps that you can almost instantly create, to the weird feelings and sensations, to the you ask for something to present and show itself and it does, to the you think about something and it truly just happens, and not like and obviously that's the definition of synchronicity, where they have to be kind of a meaningful coincidence in time and all of that. But you start having some coincidences that it just like just doesn't.
Yeah, 100%,
I
man.
don't know. Like whatever they're
100%.
teaching us in school is not what the
Yeah.
fuck is really
Oh,
happening.
100%, man. Yeah. I've had some weird stuff going on the last couple of days actually. And I spoke on the podcast a little while ago that I kept seeing the number 33. Now I know that in the conspiracy world, the number 33 is not really a positive thing. It's got a lot of negative connotation to it. So I was a bit worried when I was seeing 33 and when I say like I was seeing it constantly everywhere. Like every time I looked at the clock, 33. It was just everywhere. Like 33 for constant. So I started looking into it, and from what I was getting, it was an angelic number, and it's a positive thing, and it means that you're on the right path and stuff like that. And I recently, a few days ago, started thinking, just out of the blue, I'm not seeing the number 33 anymore. Maybe that stopped. As soon as
And
I
then you
said
inst
that,
yeah.
man, I tell you, I can't stop seeing it again. Like it's everywhere. Like I don't know. I can't explain it, but it's so strange, and it's like there. Like I don't know. It's on every time I look at the phone. It's 33. Everything's 33. You know, it's very
Yeah,
weird.
and you can just keep leveling that up to different, more complex things where then you start really realizing that. I say realizing like I've got it all figured out, and again, it's just trying to find the words to try to discuss these things. But it's like I think you can manifest your future. I think you can manipulate time. I think you can kind of put out a certain resonant energy field that can allow you to receive certain things. And I can say like my life is truly an example of it almost every day where because now I'm leaning into it because also I've got nothing to lose where it's like fuck it like this is might as well what I'm gonna try doing and it 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 works and it's there and um again not just my story but really just people that have everything every reason to believe that what they're saying is true and again this is what you do for a good portion of your life is interview these people and I'm sure some of them may have some bullshit stories but it's like no there's some people that
Hmm.
really get to interact
Yeah,
with this stuff
yeah.
and it can be life changing and profound enough to really alter somebody's whole course of their life in a positive direction. I mean, it can
Hmm.
make you go crazy too, but ideally
Yeah.
that's where you've got to use it in the right context.
100%, man. I mean, I talk to a lot of people now just for doing the podcast and people that I have on the show, but I also get a lot of people messaging that don't want to be in the show, that just want to talk about it and that say, yeah, I've experienced that. And I'm like, do you want to come on the show and talk about it? They're like, no, no, I just wanted to tell you that what you were talking about the other
Yeah.
day, I've experienced, and we're all experiencing it, man. It's wild.
But it is an exciting time, I think, to be alive right now, where I,
Hmm.
I, I think the scientific world is taking it serious, where there is good money and good research going into, ESP and telekinesis and remote viewing and things like that, because it's been proven that this is happening or that it's working. Um, even it seemed like there's this weird tipping point where with like alien disclosure stuff, with psychedelics coming into it, with weird people that are religious think that there's like the rapture's coming and like there seem to be this heightened elevated state and I'm in it and I'm kind of there on the team of let's what is the next step of human evolution? What are we capable of? And it's not stay on the same self-destructive course that we're on right now. And it's like status quo can't stay. So we're either gonna divert really horribly bad and go south really quick, or we can have the opportunity to get in a place of gratitude, of love, of self knowledge and acceptance, and all of these things. And whether you get to that path through psychedelics or other ways, that like we're all at this point where I think all this weird shit's happening because it has to happen. Like it's
Hmm.
like it's
Yeah,
just it's having its proverbial crisis where it's
yeah.
shit's gonna go down. But the more conversations I have, the more confidence I have that the mass population of people are vibrating in the frequency of love and that where they need to be. Yes, like the ruling class and the mass media and especially here in the States, like the fucking assholes run the government. Like they're
And here, man, as well.
ugh. Well, that's why I jokingly say in my book, but seriously, every politician should go on an ayahuasca retreat or do a 6, 7, 8 gram dose of shrooms or
Yeah.
spend a weekend doing multiple sessions of DMT and there's no way that they're not going to come back with more sympathy, more empathy. And that doesn't mean you're not going to passionately have your own opinion. It's just you don't look at the other person like they're an asshole and they're the enemy and let's put them down. It's like, no, they're a part of the same beautiful source. They're a facet of God too. Their opinion is just as valid as mine. Like it's a whole different perspective where you let people have, excuse me, their voice and their say because you know how worthy you are to have your voice heard, and that just projects to everybody else, where everybody else is just as worthy. And it's a great way to walk through life because you're not angry at anybody in the market anymore. You're not worried about anybody cutting you off on the highway. You're not like you just don't let you have a thicker skin because you just interact with people in a different way,
Mhm.
and
Do you feel like
that's what our
you become
policymakers need
more
to do.
one with people? Like everyone's connected.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely one of the big things that I've feel and I've experienced, and again, very very common. Almost 100% of people that have had profound psychedelic experiences all come back with that kind of hippy dippy, like, yeah, man, we're all one, we're all from the same source, we're all because it's
It's
very
true.
clear,
Yeah.
and not like the same uniform robotic like hive mentality where we're all what not that we're all truly unique facets of God or source or absolute or whatever you want to call it. Um, and the point is to reflect that uniqueness, to be truly your authentic self. And that's also a big message as not only the people that are calling into your show sharing these kind of weird experiences and me sharing my all of my weird shit where it's like that's what the world needs more of too. The world needs more of us to uniquely express ourselves, to be comfortable being the weird podcaster or writing the weird shit that I'm doing, or being the musician that's pushing the boundaries. That's what you get to see too when you realize that the point isn't to be mediocre or mundane or to conform. It's to really express yourself and be unique. Make
Hmm.
sure, as, so you're not harming anybody and don't be a dick and don't don't bring people down. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, because you it becomes really easy to love and appreciate the people around you and give the people their space to be themselves. And even talk about a lot of the aspects how it's changed my life. Relationships after psychedelics have been massive. So I told you how that one where I got a restraining order, but there were two other long-term relationships in my life that went horribly wrong. Where now the woman I'm with, I've been with her coming on like 3 years now, and like we never fight. We never argue. I can never imagine ever, and I know I never will. I will never raise my voice to this woman. I will never puff up my chest or I'll never point my finger in her face. No fucking way. And because if I ever saw anybody doing that to her, um, I don't want to start like it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, but even now, like what used to piss me off with the other women, and it could be anything, being 10 minutes late, changing their shirt on the way out, saying they want to go to Chinese food, then changing it on that they want to go to get pizza, or, I mean, the most mundane things, how they ate their fucking bagel in the morning. Like, I could find something to get annoyed with almost instantly, where now it's like all of those quirks with her, I laugh and I look at her expressing herself in this beautiful way where I cherish all of those little things about her, and it's not because she's doing anything different really than all those other women did. It's just I'm looking at it from a perspective of, wow, I get to see this woman's all of her cool quirkness, all of her uniqueness. And you know what? If she
Mhm.
makes us 10 minutes late, then maybe we missed an accident. Maybe now we'll get the cool waiter. Maybe now whatever. Like
Yeah, man.
there's so many great things, and one actually one of the main things I took away from that Monroe Institute has nothing to do with the technology or anything I experienced. It was really just this woman's kind of take on her life philosophy, where be open to whatever the world's going to give you, and always add or better at the end. So if you really want this relationship or this job, or you want this guest or podcast, a book or whatever, or just always have or better at the end, and that allows you where you're not going to get mad at your spouse for being 10 minutes late or causing some shit or whatever. Fuck,
Hmm.
I was going to spend the $500 on this, but now I get to spend it on this, but maybe it's all better. Maybe the new tires on your car prevented you from going off
Yeah,
the
man.
road and killing your family. Like,
Taking,
kind of like,
looking at the
just
positives, trying to grab the positives, trying to focus your energy on the positive side of life.
with
I think,
everything from the
yeah,
big to the small, even to the point where like I bust my mom's chops, where I'll get up in the morning and hug her and just be like, I'm glad you're not dead yet. And it's like, some people are like, what the you can't say that shit to your mom. And she's not close to being dead. She's happy, healthy, and very full of life. But
yeah,
it's just like, well, because then it leads to a laugh and just to be like, no, I'm happy that you're alive and I'm happy we're having coffee. I'm happy we're gonna smoke this joint right now and I fucking love you. And like, and I know I do that with almost like not almost, with truly everybody I interact with all day.
Hmm.
Because why not? And in my particular case, it's because I know, like, I really feel like this is my second chance at life. So every, I really shouldn't be here. So every glass of juice, I mean, every conversation with a like-minded person with you, it's not like, oh fuck, I got to do a podcast, or this is just going to be a boring conversation. It's like, no, I get to blend energy with with you, who I've never met, and now we're going to be part of this weird energy bubble that's putting out this information, and
Yeah, man.
it's fucking good. Like, it's just I'm sure it must nauseate some people. Like, it's gonna fucking piss some
Yeah,
people off, but whatever. Like,
yeah. No, that's that
they
is
can go
the
be miserable.
yeah, 100%, man. That is a great way to be. Like, energy is so important. You know, it's everything, and your perspective, your energy can change people around you as well, which it does. Like, you throw out positive energy, you're gonna
Oh
get some
yeah,
back. We're all gonna get bad days. We're all gonna get moments where things are not going great, but yeah, it's
yeah.
yeah, man.
There was this podcast I was listening to the other day where the woman was talking about, like the concept of like heaven on earth, and what would that mean? Um, and she was saying that, like, there's still going to be accidents, there's still going to be red lights, you're still going to get parking tickets, there's still going to be toothaches. It's not like this utopian space where everything is perfect and everything goes smoothly with no bullshit. No, that's not how the world works. That's not how systems work. That's not how our society works. But if everything is in a sense of gratitude and joy and love and connection, it's just the whole everything just works that much better. Like, everything just kind of heals itself. So the issues are still there. It's just the solutions are approached from a whole different perspective. And that is that kind of heaven on earth concept, or that next that state of human evolution, or however you want to call it. It really is just, how do you take in the information that the world is giving you and process it in a way that works best for you, works best for the people around you, and for the society that you're in. And I know the way I was doing it was self-destructive, where I was not only going to take out myself, but I mean, I did. I fucked up a lot of people's lives. And when I was going to go out, I was going to go out and, I felt as though I had enough energy to destroy the planet. Like, it really was that type of, like, yeah, you want to see me explode, I'll fucking explode.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's very powerful to get those proverbial demons off your back,
Hmm.
and to realize how powerful you are as a human. Um,
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so that was kind of a
Do you,
long rant, but especially coming with like Christmas and shit coming up now. I think some people may need to hear that, where it's like, no, take control of your own shit. Uh, and there's other people there that can help you too if you need it for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%, man. Do you think this is why, going back to the government, the powers that be, whoever really is in charge, do you think this is why DMT and drugs like that are illegal? Because they don't want people to have the experience that you've had. Because if everyone was like you, and the world would be a better place, man. If everyone had that mindset of love and energy, the world would be a better place for sure.
But unfortunately, I think you're correct. I think the best way to control people is through fear and through dependency, and that's definitely what our government does. Um, No, like I said, I think there is a shift that's happening. But even, to your point, and a good example of it, so that, and I know it's just fresh on my mind. Keep going back to that Monroe Institute, but that's where the CIA was pumping a bunch of money into them back in, like, I think it was like the 80s and 90s, because they were trying to do this remote viewing and trying to train basically kind of like soldiers to go and either like kill on demand, or they'd be able to control their minds, or they'd be able to send them into places and act like spies. But so they were taking like the best and the brightest of the military, and training them in how to alter their states of consciousness, elevate to the point where they can actually do all these things, where they can get to these states of elevated consciousness. But and so they were able to do the spy work. They were able to get kind of that information. But one of the issues, well, my understanding from one of the sound engineers that was working on the whole project, was that the common experience was they would come back with this sense of connection to source, a sense of love and empathy, a sense of, I'm not using these powers to break down or to find nuclear codes, or to do any nefarious bad shit. And that's kind of why the program fizzled out. It wasn't that it didn't work and that these people couldn't get their minds to do this crazy shit. It was just that once they did, they realized, if I harm him, I'm harming myself. Even if whatever, if I shoot a bomb across the ocean, it's still it's I'm hurting myself.
Hmm.
Uh, so no, to your point, if everybody did look at, and this is where it really comes back to too, looking at loving yourself first, and again, it sounds corny as two grown men that kind of look like us talking about this shit, but it's really the conversation that has to happen because so many people don't love themselves, and that's what I didn't do until 41 years of my life, and I almost fucking lost it. And again, I had everything on paper, and it was very easy to say, well, how could you possibly not be happy? Well, I wasn't, and I didn't have internal happiness because I didn't know how to love myself with all of my successes and everything that I had accomplished. And that's again where the psychedelics knew exactly where it needed to talk to me at. Um, but as soon as I could learn to truly love myself with all of my warts and scars and nastiness and all of my own quirks and shit. Um, but then it opened up a whole new way of looking at other people, and I became a better friend. I became a better son. I became a better boyfriend. Like I was a teacher for a while. I was a better teacher because of all of this. I think I'm a better writer because of it. I know, and I got probably one of the best compliments I could have last night. I had like an hour conversation with a husband and wife who I just recently befriended, and we clicked. And I've only talked to him a couple times, but last night I talked to him, and his voice was shaking, like he was so excited, like he was so amped about this project. He's writing this awesome book about a lot of these topics I'm talking about, and I think it's actually going to be an amazing book, and hopefully I can help and help him get it get it off, but. He was like, dude, you changed my fucking life. And he's saying this like talking like how you and I talk. And he's like, just the way you said it and the what you said. He's like, I'm pretty much, I'm gonna achieve my dream now. I'm going after it. And he's got a good job, so he's not worried about money. Like he's in a good place. He just never had anybody kind of be like, yeah, why the fuck not? Like you got one shot at this life, man. Like don't wait until you're old and gray or but for him to say with his wife on the side of him cheerleading both each other being so excited to be like, yeah, man, you fucking changed my life. Like,
That's awesome.
I made a lot of money in my life. I've done a lot of real estate deals. I'll take somebody saying you changed my life over fucking any of that, man. Like because I've and this not to just say what all my friends are doing, but like he sent me a text being like, I'm gonna start this fund, and he goes, I really want to go to Egypt with you because I want to experience some stuff and I want to do some stuff in Egypt with you. And he's like, I'm gonna figure out a way to pay for us, and I believe it. Like so, I may not have money right now, but this guy's probably gonna figure out a way to take me to Egypt, and it's like that's how that ripple effect
Yeah, man.
can happen, and that's why I'm excited, and I'll be honest, like that's why I reached out to you. It's not like you called me and said, hey, come on the show. Like I reached out to you because it's like this story.
I would have done
One,
eventually.
I'd like to. It's this weird like incestuous circle of everybody that
Yeah.
fucking talks to each other. Um, but it's like what? If I can get to one person, and maybe yeah for the cool DMT stories, and maybe you want to lucid dream and have sex on DMT and do all the fun shit and talk to aliens and stuff like that. That's awesome. But the truth is, if I can help somebody just figure out, not blow up their life like I did and achieve some of the lessons that I've come to without having all the self-destruction and the divorces and the separations and the kids hating you and don't threaten to kill anybody over $900. Like that's definitely don't
Oh,
do that. It's not worth $900. Um,
oh,
but
but
yeah, it's like fuck. If it resonates with one person, then it's worth spending my time because of the conversation I got last night. Like that alone gave me such like yes, like man, now I'm talking with goosebumps because I can't wait
yeah,
to get my next book finished because fuck, now I'll get another couple. Like it's
that's
just
awesome, man.
it is fun.
And that energy, that is contagious and it's special. That excitement that you said, there's something to that, man. And people really need to lean in on that and get
It's
excited.
Yeah, it's because it's authentic, and that's the big message too. Is that's going to be really different for everybody. So whether it's writing poetry, whether it's making music, whether it's baking, whether it's whatever, fucking landscape design. I mean, there's so many ways to beautifully and authentically express yourself, and that really resonates with people. That no matter what it was. I mean, if you do a really good Halloween setup, like if you do a really good Christmas setup, I mean, there's so many things that just go with what you feel good, like in your gut and what your intuition says, and
Hmm.
lean into it. And
Yeah,
that's
man.
really helpful, especially in today's society where social media is trying to make everybody fit into some group, or everybody's going to look fake or be part of a side, or God forbid you express your opinion, and it's like fuck
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think that's just a part of the, I don't know, like you said earlier, keeping people in fear and, anxiety. I think that fuels that. So I think that's why that's,
And something that definitely going into DMT, like my bullshit filter. So like I'm very comfortable like, and I take that bullshit filter in the DMT space where it's fun. Like I go in there and it's just like, yeah, whatever. Like I'm good. I'm here. But that that bullshit filter comes back into the natural walking state. And if everybody had that bullshit filter too, not only just the love connection kumbaya, but also the bullshit like, no, you can't like I don't know. I mean, whatever you'd say, like no kid should go hungry. Like that, what the fuck? Like that should be a pretty clear one. Like no, you can't. Like no guy should be punching a woman. Like that's clear, right? Like no one should be doing anything to kids. That's pretty clear, right? Or, if some church is stealing money and taking the funds that should be going to other stuff, like, also have the balls to stand up and be like, no, that's a piece of shit move. You're a scumbag. You can't do that. But I don't, you know.
Mhm.
That wouldn't happen, I think, in a society that's really based on taking care of everybody else and
yeah,
living like that.
yeah, man, 100%. I've got to ask you more about the Monroe Institute. You've mentioned that a few times. Can you tell for anyone that is not fully sure what that is? Can you tell us what that was and when that was established?
Yeah, so I've over the past, and this isn't just with psychedelics, but over the past like 15, 20 years, it's great how information and books and people and names, like Alan Watts, and that was exposed to me back in the day. Terrence McKenna, like some of these names that it's just like people are like, oh, how would you never know about them? Well, until somebody brings it to your attention, it's like, oh wow. Monroe Institute's one of those places that was kind of once I started hearing about it, I heard about it, 10 times in a couple months after. So it's an institute in Virginia, and the sum of the story is the guy that founded it, Robert Monroe. He was like this high end, well not high end, but this really successful radio guy that bought up a bunch of radio stations and everything. And he was just a normal businessman, but he had an out of body experience where one night, like he woke up and he was like, in his words, and he was bouncing against the ceiling, and he looked down and he's like, "What the fuck?" He saw some guy laying in bed with his wife, and he's like, "Fuck, that's me." So it freaked him out, and like he had his true out of body experience. That kept happening several times over the course of like the next few months, and he decided that he's really going to spend the rest of his life kind of looking into that and how it happens. Now he was a radio wave, an AM FM kind of geek, so he had all this technology. So he was looking into different brain wave lengths and to see how they correlated to different states. So if you're really tired, if you're really excited, if people are in deep meditative states, like is there something in your brain that correlates with that? And he found that yes, there was. And then to how to induce that, they would do what's called binaural beats or binaural frequencies. So each ear, and then try to do a brain hemisphere synchronization. So really, what they're doing is your ears can only pick up so much sensitivity, so they can't pick up 8 hertz. But if you play 100 hertz in one ear, excuse me, they can't pick up anything I think under like 20 hertz or 40 hertz. But if you play 100 in one ear and then 108 in the other ear, your brain will pick up the difference of that 8 hertz. And that 8 hertz is where these levels of different brain wavelengths can get you to have different energetic fields in your body. So the sum so over the years, and this program's going on for like I think like 40 years, 50 years or something like that. They've been working on all these technologies where in essence you listen to these beats, and at different frequencies they get your body to really get into either a deep meditative sleeping state where like your body feels like it's completely asleep but your brain's awake. There are states where your body's like humming and vibrating with like crazy energy. There's states where you're open to like ghosts and entities and kind of like alien interactions. There's states where then you can push it to remote viewing and out of body, and and it sounds like really woo woo, like no fucking way. But that's exactly why I went, because I wanted to compare the DMT states and what I was seeing and all of my fucked up experiences. How does that relate to what these other people were doing? Because I've had out of body experiences, I've astral projected, I've done all this crazy shit, I've seen demons, entities, aliens. So I wasn't going there to have the experience. I was going there to see what the similarities were. And It was awesome. So beautiful campus, amazing place, awesome trainers, like really good program. But the truth of it is you spend like 8 to 10 hours a day in deep meditation in a nice quiet dock bed with your own, your own space, listening to these frequencies, and they train you to use them to really get your consciousness to ascend to different states and altered states and ultimately higher states where you can interact with, the only way to say it is spirits, entities, the actual word that the government paper that came out, and it was like this famous paper in like the 80s or something, was non-corporeal beings. And that's, so that's what you're interacting with.
Wow.
So it's like,
Wow,
and
man.
maybe a good example. So like these DMT entities, I said they're in their own space. They're their own thing. They're their own, like there's no way that the human brain can fabricate something that complex. And that's another really good point where like, when you're seeing ghosts or aliens, there is a possibility that maybe you just watched a movie or you're reading books or podcasts and all these things, and it's just like, well, yeah, you've been looking at aliens for 2 years, like that's what you're gonna have a dream about. Well, that's what you're gonna think if you're having a weird state. Uh,
Hmm.
what you see in the DMT space, there's no construct at all possible that anybody could ever have that would build that. There's no movie you've watched, there's no place you've been, there's no even
There's
Alex
nothing to
Ray
compare
painting.
it to.
Nothing, and there's no way that it can be fabricated. Like, as much as I've had some cool experiences at 44 years old, being a white guy growing up in New England, in this time, there's no way that I can create that type of world in space with that type of complexity, that type of intricacy, that type of information being, that type of folding of geometric shapes, the knowledge of math, the magic knowledge of physics. There's just, and I'm a pretty intellectual guy. I went to college for a long time. I've read a lot of books. No fucking way can my brain create a millionth of that. So
Th-
it's definitely its
This
own
might be
thing.
difficult, but can
But
you describe what these entities look like? Especially after what you've just said, how complex they are. Could you,
so
is there
like I said, they
anything to
all
compare them to?
there's a lot of different flavors of them, but I think the unique commonality is that it's not so much like you're looking at them or they're even two-dimensional or three-dimensional. It's like you're in them. They're part of you. They're not only spinning and turning and going left and right. They're like fluxing in and out, and they're just moving in a space in a way that is not normal. Um, but I've had a lot of like some of the fun ones where you're blasting into the space and it's almost like you're laying there on like a conveyor belt and they'll kind of look over you, and some of them are kind of like machine-like spidery looking, like robotic type shit, and it's like that's fucking weird. Some of them are like the space alien, like I don't want to say scary monster or scary clown kind of looking, but like just weird gestury type
Hmm.
stuff. I've had ones that were really angelic white, like they looked to me, it was like white manta rays. Like I was almost just kind of floating in a bed of like white manta rays looking. So they do have their own looks, but the crispness and clarity of the edges, but the edges are constantly moving and morphing and changing, and the edges have just as much space as the inside, as weird as that is. It's a really complex, dynamic, moving. Everything is just so dynamic, and powerfully informative. Where, I came out of one session where I was like, "Fuck!" I felt as though I had the same amount of information embedded in my head in 7 8 minutes than I did in my 7 8 years of college, because you just saw
Wow.
everything just compile exponentially to be like, oh, you can connect just instantaneously massive amounts of information, and actually, and this is a really kind of cool story, um not cool but just a recent one where, like, and a good example of how the information is different. Last week I did a nice DMT session, and there was a very clear and distinct, like, male presence and ambiance. In this one particularly, it was weird. It was like green and velvety and fuzzy for some reason. Like that was it was like everything was covered in like this green shag carpet type. Like for some reason that was the vibe. So I was interacting kind of with them and more just seeing what they were doing. And as they were leaving the space, another set of different colored entities came in, and they were more female, and you could tell like that was the vibe of them. And as soon as they looked over and saw that I could speak DMT, like, as soon as they realized that I was there and I was a conscious and interactive part of what was happening, then they stopped and came back and started talking and interacting with me. But it wasn't talking, it was in that particular DMT session, I was really trying to focus on gratitude. I was really in there just thinking about all the amazing things. I had just come back from Monroe, um, and I do have a lot of good stuff to kind of go over in my life. So that's what my intent was, and I was trying to express gratitude to these beings and entities, and the only way I could convince it was almost like the Care Bear cartoon from back in the day, or like something just blasting out just these mandala spinning shapes and energies and colors that were spinning in on themselves, and I was doing it, and it was all expressing gratitude. Now, as opposed to just saying the word gratitude, what the fuck, it's 1 second, it's a couple words, it's a hard syllable, like, as opposed to this multiple minute expression of symphony of colors, sound, shape, moving, and she was interacting with it, and it was like so it was gratitude, but it was maybe and like how much information can be contained in like a Japanese symbol or like a Egyptian hieroglyph or something like that, where it's like it's that but times so much more when you start interacting with these energies. So it's not, oh yeah, I saw a female entity and we had love and gratitude. It was like, I don't know, I saw this alien female-like thing and we sat in this theater and expressed gratitude, but it was just this blending of energies that kept mending and resonating and building and constructing, and
Hmm.
it's like, and then I get, come out of that and say to my girlfriend, be like, yeah, I just had this gratitude session with a DMT female, and she's like, was it sexual? Did you fuck her? And I was like, no, it was we just were able to convey our gratitude and thanks for one another by visual and okay, so there was visual, there was sound, there wasn't taste or anything like that, but then there was all those other senses which I don't have a name for, which
Hmm.
just get compounded when you do DMT. So you're having all of these really
Interesting.
data-rich experiences, and
Yeah.
that's where the profoundness and the common phrase of more real than real comes out, because you're a normal experience you're getting 100 data points. Well, in a DMT experience, you're getting 1 million data points. So how
Hmm.
you're coming out with just that much more information to kind of build a theory around.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't then it doesn't comply to anything else in your normal reality. So that's where the DMT is getting, not that it's getting a lot of attention, but that's that really weird question where it's not just a chemical, whether it be synthetic or plant-based, like DMT, excuse me, not DMT, like LSD or ketamine or shrooms. Um, it's not like that, and it doesn't interact with your brain like those drugs. Like Andrew Gallimore, he's one of the guys doing a lot of research where he actually goes into the brain chemistry and how what receivers are receiving the chemicals and stuff like, and it's its own unique thing. And like even and he spent like 20 years trying to figure this shit out, and he'll be the first to tell you I really still don't know. It's
Yeah.
just it's not somebody's just brain having a hallucination.
Hmm.
It's not just somebody tripping out on drugs. It's not.
These entities are real. Like they're there.
Yeah, and and that's where when I talked about the ghost hunter talking about the dead batteries and the red eyes, where this is not something like, take my word for it. I mean, you could smoke DMT tonight and you'd come on your next podcast and you'd be like, guys, I saw the fucking entities. Yep,
Yeah.
there's jesters. Yep, there's this. And it's like, so there's no, so it's not something where, and I'm not suggesting everybody do that, but, um, Terrence McKenna had and I forgot what lecture it was in, but he had a lot of academic people kind of pushing back, saying that he's just, some hippie guy doing LSD and DMT and shit like that. And, he kind of challenged people. He's like, we'll do it. Like, I've lived the normal life. I've done the academic thing. I've studied all the same books you've done it. But the difference is I've done this molecule and you haven't. Um, have the balls to do it, and then we'll have the conversation. Then
Hmm.
tell me it's not real. Like, have the
Yeah.
conversation with your deceased child that, like, you and him, like, only him and you and that child would know something, but then the person next to you is like, oh yeah, Jimmy wanted to say thanks for the blue ball, and you're like, what the fuck, like, have that experience and then not be a not believer. And
Hmm.
that's I think a common thing from all these a lot of your guests too, where it's like once you see what you've seen, you can't unsee it. Whether it be a ghost, an alien, a Bigfoot, a cryptid, or once if you've had time stopped, if you've had a near death experience,
Hmm.
you can't you can't come back and just be like, oh yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's not how you
Changes
put it
everything.
into it.
Yeah.
Changes everything.
And that's normally why you have more experiences because you're open to it. Once you're open to
Absolutely.
it, you start to see, feel, and experience a lot more.
Well, that's that concept I think of having, your body as an antenna. So, look at it as just a basic radio, then you get the CD upgrade, then you get the satellite upgrade, and then you get I think as a body we can just keep refining and tuning our antenna. Like I know now, uh, I don't have to smoke DMT to have really crazy experiences. I know just through quieting my brain and having my, heart and brain cohere, getting into deep breathing meditations, I know I can tap into this shit all the time. I mean, I can walk into a
Wow.
room and feel all sorts of different energies and stuff like that because I know I'm sensitive to it and I'm leaning into it. Um, that's also really powerful too, is that you realize that your body is more than, that it's greater than, that it's tapped into something greater than. Uh, and that that gets used every day. That's an empowering and again enriching thing to have happen to you, where you're like, oh yeah, I can tap into this shit. Whether it's
Hmm.
fun stuff like watch, I'll pull a 33 out of my hat, or I don't know, I'll
Yeah.
avert disaster, or even better, I'll create some magnificent magical thing because
Yeah.
I can.
Man. I mean, what the DMT experience that you described, when I talk to people that have had near-death experiences, and I've talked to a lot of people now that have passed, gone to the other side or whatever it is, had this incredible experience, then come back, and it sounds very much like what you're explaining, like where it's like beautiful, it's an amazing experience. Sometimes I don't want to come back, and they're in this other world where time is irrelevant, where there's all things going on around us. There's a knowing there that wasn't there before. That's what it is, man.
Yeah, it's all very similar. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of great stories of and again, take my story for what it's worth. I've got no reason to lie to you, but it is nice when you have, like really learned Harvard scientists that have an experience and that, they've been studying brain chemistry their whole life. They have an experience and then they completely change their whole perspective. Or they've been, a hardcore Christian their whole life and then they change, or vice versa. Or, like there's, and it's not, I don't think there's any necessarily one way of describing it, but to have pretty much a closed mind and then come back with a completely opened mind that there's something more. That's the common thing. And, and there's a lot of work with near death experience. Does that actually have to do with DMT? Is it like a pineal gland releasing DMT where it's kind of like smoothing the, greasing the track, so to speak, to get to that other level? There's and all this is hypothesis, and again, I don't suspect to have the answer, but I just know it's very odd that your body has this molecule in it and it's that powerful.
Hmm.
And my understanding is it's in levels that are comparable to other neurotransmitters. And it hasn't been titled a neurotransmitter yet, but supposedly it's in same levels or similar levels to like serotonin and dopamine and shit like that, where why?
Hmm.
And then another important point too would be if you haven't smoked it before and you wouldn't know what it smells like or tastes like, obviously. Uh, when you get when you increase your own naturally produced DMT, whether it be through, like I said, meditation, through breathing, and there's a lot of great videos online that actually go over how to do that. Uh, it is very clear that's what it is. Like the first time I did the breathing exercises after smoking it, I was laughing because you started feeling elated and you started feeling blissful and then you started getting kind of like euphoric visions and shit like that. But then I started tasting that DMT in the back of my nasal cavity again. I was like, motherfucker, like this is
Wow.
this is it. Like you really can produce your own natural DMT. Now you're not gonna have that same
Yeah.
blown out like, probably talking to aliens, but you can get your body to make your own DMT and really trip out on it and feel
Do you
really, really good.
do you think you could have that without smoking it, or do you
Oh
think you
yeah, that's
have
what I'm saying. No, oh, like
do you
to
have to
open
have
up.
smoked it before to open yourself, and
No,
then you can do the breathing?
No, I don't think so at all. I,
Interesting.
and a lot of that too is just taking the time for yourself. Like taking the time to give yourself an hour, whether it be walking in the woods, going to yoga, or to doing breathing exercises. A lot will get exposed to you if you just can clear your mind to receive that type of stuff. But
Hmm.
uh, I think DMT is the quick, easy. It's like a cheat code. You know, it's like it gets you there instantly. Where instead of going to the mountaintops and praying for 20 years or to whatever, like it can just. And for me, and again, that's not for everybody. For me, I needed that. Like I needed all my foundational beliefs to get switched
Hmm.
up. Like I was there. So I didn't have time to go on whatever years and years of therapy or to I needed an answer now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Luckily, it gave it to me.
Yeah, man. Well, so you've got the book now, so it's like it's put you on this path, and you're spreading this message now.
Yeah, by the end of the year, I've been on, so between since the book come out, been on like 30 podcasts. So I mean, not that that's a huge
Man,
amount, but like I've been
yeah,
on a pretty good kick. I've got
yeah,
a bunch more lined up. I've got another book coming out. Me and my girlfriend want to write like a children's book series about, some of this information, but in a fun kids way. And
yeah,
yeah, it's
man.
been a hell of a ride, man. Like, so, because I'm not just focusing on money, I'm not focusing on status, I'm not focusing on all the shit that society typically tells a 40-something-year-old guy that they have to focus on. Now, there's going to be a balance. And, I'm not shitting on money, I'm not shitting on success or professional whatever, acuity, but there has to be a balance. And, I'm sure I'll swing back into, other areas where I'll have some, more financial security. But right now, it's really just focus on myself, focus on learning how amazing this world is because every rabbit hole I go down, there's just more there. There's more
Yeah,
amazing
man.
people with more amazing stories. Uh, and I just want to learn more. Because
Yeah, man.
fuck politics, fuck the stupid
Yeah,
ganks online, fuck like the douchebag guys that are trying to be macho. It's just like I don't want any of that shit, man. I wanna learn about this type of stuff. I wanna learn more about myself. And it has to do with taking the time to reflect and think about freaky shit.
yeah, man. That's what we love. That's what we love, brother.
Yeah.
I've got
No.
before you went on the spiritual journey and started the DMT. Going back to like your younger days when you was a kid and stuff like that, did you have any paranormal experiences? Did you have any paranormal experiences, or was it just as you started the DMT?
No, and I figured you would ask that because like I said, I've been listening to a lot of your your interviews,
Yeah,
and I know you like if there were other things beyond like the main thing, and there were a couple things that I can look back now to say it shows signs of what I've experienced. So, I'd say a cool ghost kind of happening or a couple ghost things. I used to flip houses, and one of the houses I got, it was a duplex, so a side-by-side duplex, and it was over 100 years old, older house. It was full of shit. So we had been in there cleaning out the house for like a good, week and a half. But it was 4 stories, and the lowest, obviously in the basement, was just full of all this stuff. So I'm there by myself one day. Um, no one had been there at all. There was no one working. There was no machines running, and I was in the basement just cleaning out stuff, and I felt this really weird kind of energy, like something was there. And in retrospect, I'd had that feeling all my life, really. I've always kind of got that. So I started, talking, being like, "We're gonna clean this place up. Like, don't worry. Like me and my family, we're gonna make this beautiful again." Because it was really a shit pit, and kind of trying to soothe it, like just let you know, hey, I'm not an asshole, or I'm not gonna be here to keep destroying it. I'm gonna make it nice. And there was one of those little girls, music boxes with like the spinning ballerina thing, and it was up on a shelf. Now, no one had been in this house. It was a condemned house, and no one had been there for I think like over a year. Um, we had been working in that house for a long time, so there had been people there that had jostled the floor. There had been, it's not like it had just been stagnant. But there was no one else in the house. There was no one else, whatever. And I started feeling this energy, and I was just like, "Well, if you're here, just let me know or give me a sign." And that fucking thing started playing and started spinning around. The second I said, "Just give me a sign if you're here." So that was one of those like, "Oof, oh shit." Um,
ah,
I did have a motorcycle accident where I kind of had I don't want to say near death, but time slowed so like slowed down where I could see the writing and the little like rubber pegs on the tire of the car that I was sliding under, and I could see those little pegs like going as my face like went by it, and then I just don't remember anything, and I was standing in the middle of the street. Like the bike was over here, the car was over here, the other people were over here, and I was just standing in the street, and everybody was just like, "Dude, I saw you get fucking squished. Like, how is this even possible?" But
Whoa.
to have time slow down that, that slow where I saw the whole thing, that like that shit
Wow.
happened. And
Injuries?
then
Did you have any injuries from that?
I didn't even have road rash. I didn't have any scars. I didn't have anything. And I slid. I was going probably like 30 miles an hour. And the car coming at me was going 30, and
Whoa.
it was fucking weird.
Wow, man.
And then there was another, as I'm just thinking about ways of how energies can move out of your body. There was a very distinct time I was sitting on the coast and I was just on the rocks kind of meditating, and I wasn't doing any drugs, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking, and but I was there for a couple hours. And I remember at one point I was looking at myself probably like 15, 20 feet, like I was kind of like hovering above the ocean. I was looking at myself, sitting in the rocks, and it was a very just different feeling from having a vision or a dream, or it was like, oh fuck, like I'm looking at myself like in real time, sunning myself in the rocks. So like,
Wow.
there has I have had experiences, I guess, that have shown me that there's something more. Um,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
no aliens or like talking to things like that until all this shit. And
Yeah.
now I really do feel like the veil has been lifted or removed, or I'm just practicing now on those senses, and I feel like I'm more sensitive to them,
Hmm.
even
Yeah.
though
So
it's been
in your
fun.
day-to-day life now, yeah, you
It's
you
fucking weird.
you see these things and you experience these things all the time, would you say, or regularly?
Yeah, and everything is just different. And some of the most basic things, like before you listen to a song and you'd only hear one or two instruments and just like the bass line hook. Now like I hear every little beat, every little synchronicity, every little whatever. Where now, like you'll taste every ingredient in a meal, or you'll feel just everything is just so much more refined, precise, elevated, uh, dialed up, and that applies to everything. Feelings, emotions, all of those type of things. You just have access to more of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I feel like even the other day I was sitting in my kitchen, and you had that, and everybody has it, right? That weird feeling like somebody's overlooking you. And I was there alone, and I'm comfortable now just kind of talking out to these things. And I was just like, listen, if you're there, you don't need to be afraid. Like if there's something that you need to tell me, like just tell me. And again, the second, like the timing, and that's really the weird shit. The second I said that, there was this really, they sounded like a cicada, like that insect that sounds like vibratory, like energy, just like a humming. The second I said that, it was right in my ear, like it was standing over my back, just this humming, like, and
Whoa.
again, it's like, all right, well, thanks, So I wasn't scared, I wasn't afraid, but it was just like, yeah, you're fucking there, huh?
Yeah, man.
But
Wow.
I've never been harmed. I've never felt afraid. Like when I go to bed at night, it's not like, oh, don't you hang your leg or your feet off the bed, or, what's behind the door, or shit, if there's something looking through the window. I've never felt anything negative, really. Like even that scary time where I felt as though I got that hardware upgrade. At
Hmm.
the end of it all, I felt like as though it was good. Like they were preparing me for the next stage. Like they were, really like upgrading me. They were putting on a new suit, or however you want to, use that analogy. But no, there's always been weird shit, but I've never felt harmed. I've never been harmed. Um, I've never had anybody around me hurt or anything like that. Other than when I had my own demons and shadow work, and maybe that could be a bigger discussion for another time. But that was really the only time where I actually had like I thought negative really entities around me. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So interesting, brother. That time, just going back, because I was going to ask you that anyway, that time you had that download, that possible download, where you went to I think you said it was like a blue room.
Mhm.
Did
Well,
you,
the hardware
the
upgrade,
hardware
the
upgrade? Yeah,
downloads
sorry.
are fucked up and hard to take, but they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I just got to download. This was like oh shit, I just had something inserted in my body. Like, what the fuck is that?
Wow, yeah.
Sorry, not
And
to
you
cut you off, but yeah,
and
hardware.
that stood out. That was a different kind of experience to normal. Very
Yeah,
different.
because it was very, and I've never experienced like sleep paralysis, but when I hear people describe that, that's kind of what it felt like because, like I said, it wasn't painful, but I couldn't move and I was restricted, and that like that kind of annoyed me because I don't like being, not that I'm claustrophobic, but like I don't like being cornered, I don't like being told what to do, I don't like people, touching me like that.
Hmm.
Uh, so that was uncomfortable just because it was why can't I move? And it was kind of like not how dare you, but like what the fuck? I didn't give you permission to do this. But yeah, because normally it is really enjoy the sensory effects. So open your eyes, look at the cool tapestries. Have your ears open so that way you're listening to really cool music. Make love to my girlfriend who's there. So when I look at her, she's turning into all these crazy shapes and cool shit. And so normally it is, yeah, be very immersed in this awesome sensory experience. This was, nope, you're fucking out of this space, out of this room. You're pinned, you can't move. You've got this weird hot thing going up your feet. You can feel it going through your body. It went to the top of your head and then back out. And then afterwards, your nose is dripping, and you're like, "What the like?" So that was the one that was really just it was just so different from all the other experiences, and just physiologically different to the point where it was a whole. I've had the breakthroughs, I've had the ego dissolutions, I've had the, like I said, the entity interactions. This was this was a different one, and that's
Yeah.
why I think there is a lot of similarities to alien abductions, and even I spoke on one podcast, and I was apprehensive of saying that. Like, was it an alien abduction? Was it alien abduction like? Is it just because that's a terminology I use a lot? Um, this particular guy he was a Christian, but more like a mystical Christian, not like a, like push Jesus down your throat type deal. But I kind of was like, was it like a Christ consciousness download? And it kind of felt like all of those things could have potentially like applied. Like it really was yeah, like I was getting a nice upgrade, but
Interesting.
not something I was anticipating.
Yeah.
Now, it could have been that was my intention, maybe. Again, I always go with good intentions and prayers when I'm going into these spaces, but yeah,
Was that
fucking
on DMT as well? Was that whilst you was on DMT, that experience?
yes. Yeah. So yeah,
Interesting.
it really does allow, like I said, it
Yeah.
opens up everything.
Did you see any entities when that was happening? Or was you just in a blue space and getting the feeling?
No, no. So that was another very distinct. There was no. It was just. It felt like I was in like blue gel, and I was just not falling, not suspended, not pulled, just there, like just floating in blue,
Interesting, man.
having and I feel like not that I had something holding down my each like my arms and feet, but like I said, something was restraining me from moving. Where like I said, normally movement and enjoying your body is a really cool part of the DMT experiences, but this was not.
Hmm.
So was it just a massive amount, and I did like a DMT induced sleep paralysis? I don't. But then why would I have all the sensations of what I felt and that
Hmm.
type of weirdness, and then the lasting, lingering thing afterwards that I never had, and all the other DMT experiences? There's always this, hey, you got to integrate it, and what did you just experience? But there was never. I mean, I came out shaking, like
Hmm.
really fucking, really shook up, like
Yeah.
for a while. I mean, it took me a while to even kind of talk about it. It was
Interesting,
like,
man.
what the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I bet.
But now,
But
so I've done it several times since. I haven't actually. You know what? Now that I'm saying that, one of the times I was going into it, and I kind of said, like, I wonder if I'm gonna interact with these things again, or somehow, and I do have a kind of distinct remember where they were like, well, we can't scare him like that last time, or like, I remember they were like a little bit softer, where they were kind of like, all right, yeah, whatever.
interesting.
He kind of fucking wigged last time, so
Yeah,
I did get that sense.
interesting, man. Because talking to a lot of people that have experienced abduction and stuff like that, a lot of the time it's not your typical, you see a craft, there's a beam of light that takes you to the craft. This stuff, it's often in like dream state and there seems to be something to that, man, with abductions and things like that. So,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
never like been in a craft. I've never like had interaction with grays or things like that.
Hmm.
I've never seen any UFOs. So that's why, I'm not, but whatever it was alien to this world, I mean, whatever it was, if it was ghost, entity, spirit, again, I guess you're only dumbing it down by putting a word to it, but whatever it was not, it wasn't a physical person,
Yeah.
but something did something to my body, and it was palpable. I mean, I have no doubt that it happened. I just don't know what it was.
Hmm. Interesting, man. Wow, brother. You blow my mind tonight, man. Super interesting. You taught me a lot.
Uh,
And thank you. It's for
but
to open up and share your experiences and to talk about the hard part as well. I really appreciate it, man. I think it's going to help people. So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
I appreciate you sharing your time and energy. And again, I'm not saying this to try to, fluff your nuts or just to, say pleasantries. I really like how you pull out the story of your guest and how you engage with them. And I find it very relaxing listening to your voice and how you know, conduct your
Ah,
interviews. So I
thank you,
think
man.
you do a good job at what you're doing. And you're sprinkling in I think the right messages where it's not just all of the flashy, fancy, sparkly stuff. But then that is out there, and that's kind of what we're talking about too. But it's nice to sprinkle in some of this really applicable, like, yeah, well, what do we do with it now? Like, as
Hmm.
grown ass men, how do we apply this to our lives instead of just write books and talk about podcasts? It's like, well, realize that there's greater forces out there, that we're somehow part of it, that we are connected to it, that it is based on energy and vibration, that we can manipulate that energy and vibration. Um, the vibrations of love and gratitude really open up a lot of this. That there's a lot of just stuff that can come out of these experiences that will. I think that's why we're meant to have these experiences, whether it's part of a simulation, whether it's part of a matrix, whether it's part of some whatever the fuck it's part of. There are lessons to be learned, but let's learn them and not just like don't just drug them up with prescription pills or drink or sweep them under the rug and nah, like that's not what we're supposed to do here. We're
Hmm.
supposed to explore properly.
Yeah, man. For
So yeah,
sure.
no, I appreciate what you're doing because
Thank
you
you,
give people
brother.
like me a voice and a place to share this, and more importantly, the kind of island of misfits out there that are looking for these voices. So yeah, man,
No,
let's
thank you,
keep
man.
doing it.
I appreciate you, brother. And I'd love to get you back on and talk more. I feel that there's more we can talk about. So 100% you're welcome back anytime, man. Thank you. Thank you
I
very
appreciate
much.
that. Yeah, there's some big things coming, so we'll definitely
Yeah,
be in touch. And
exciting. Exciting stuff, man.
yeah, I'm excited to listen to what you got coming on too, because I've learned my whole thing too is like if you can take one tidbit from each book, from each podcast, from each person you interact with, it doesn't have to be an amazing book or an amazing full 2 hours, or it's just if you can
Hmm.
pull a couple things from it, and I've pulled a couple things from all of your interviews, and I think if we
Oh,
just keep
man.
throwing these little tidbits out there, some shit will stick, and that's what
Yeah,
we got to do. That's our part.
100%, man. Thank you very much, brother. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you, where they can get your book and stuff like that?
So the book is called Butler's DMT Field Guide. It's available on Amazon. It's probably the best way the easiest way. I do have an audio version as well as Kindle. The audio version is read in my voice, so if you either like or dislike my voice, that may skew you in either way. Um, and then Instagram is probably the best one that I interact with. So books by Adam Butler, and then is the handle on Instagram. And my email is booksbyadambutler@gmail.com. And I say that because a lot of people have asked for PDF copies of the book. There's recipes in the book about how to make your own ayahuasca, make your own DMT, which is that was a kind of a big reason why the book has been kind of doing well too. So if anybody wants a free PDF copy or wants a copy of the recipes, I'd be more than happy to share it. It's really not about trying to get rich or make a buck off this. It's really about trying to share the message about the power of yourself, the power of this plant medicine, and if I can help in any way, then be more than happy to. But I'm here. I'm accessible. If I can be of help to anybody, if you want to talk about more weird shit, get freaky again,
100%, man.
we'll
100%.
do it.
We definitely will.
Yeah.
100%.
No,
Thank
there's a
you
lot of
very
cool
much,
shit going
brother.
on. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome stuff. Well, guys, get in touch. You heard it there. Get in touch. The links will be in the show description so you can find Adam easily. Guys, we'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Thank you very much, sir. I'll see you
Thank you.
soon. Thank you.
Yes.